Hey guys, what's up? It's Conversion CP here, and this is a video about how I beat the hardest Pokemon game without taking damage. Now, if you aren't familiar with it, this is Pokemon Colosseum. It was released at the end of 2003 after Ruby and Sapphire, but before Emerald came out. This game has the same basic gameplay as a normal mainline Pokemon title, but this one differs in the fact that all the battles are double battles. Also, a key difference is that this game has 0 wild Pokemon. You have to actually steal other people's Pokemon from them to get more in your party. Now I know what you're thinking, why would Game Freak let you steal other people's Pokemon? That's the one rule you can never break in a mainline game. And it actually has a story reason which can be explained later, but for now you just need to know there's a criminal organization controlling those Pokemon, and we must steal them to help them and send them back to their normal selves. These Pokemon are called Shadow Pokemon, and they're the same ones you can catch in Pokemon Go from Team Rocket. Alright, this intro has been pretty long, but there is one more topic I want to cover, and that is a few tricky or often forgotten game mechanics from Generation 3. Let's start off with the double battle mechanics of Generation 3. In this generation, 2 Pokemon from each side are sent out, and if one of them faints during battle, then another Pokemon must be sent out to replace them in between attacks. This changed in later generations because it is possible to end up fainting 4 Pokemon in a single turn this way, and it causes some shenanigans with abilities that activate upon switch-in. The other mechanic which needs to be talked about is the physical special split. In Generation 4 and onward, each move is determined to either be a special or physical move when calculating damage. However, in Generation 1, 2, and 3, the move's type is actually what determines which attacking stat it uses. For example, all electric type moves in Generation 3 are special. Even Volt Tackle, which in later generations is a physical move, is actually a special move because it's an electric type. Up on the screen now are all the types and their categories, but I will talk about them some more later as it ends up becoming a big problem later on in the run. Now that the basics of the game are explained, I'll go over the rules for this challenge. So this is a damageless run, which means under no circumstances are our Pokemon's HP allowed to fall even 1 point. However, I am still allowed to be hit by status moves or any moves that my Pokemon are immune to. There will be no usage of items except Pokeballs allowed for the run, so no X items or any other shenanigans like that. The last rule is that any Pokemon I steal or snag as the game calls it must be at full HP if they enter the party, or they must go to the PC where they will be fully healed upon capture. So I can damage a Shadow Pokemon I plan to capture if they will be sent to the PC afterwards. Oh, and also a little bonus challenge is I'm going to try and capture every single Shadow Pokemon in the game. Now, I personally think it would be way too easy if I just killed them, so we won't let a single one escape. Plus, after you beat the game, there's a cool bonus if you end up capturing all the Shadow Pokemon. With that out of the way, let's actually get into the run itself. Once the starting cutscene ends, I check the summary of our 2 starters. I reset quite a few times trying to get good natures and IVs on my Pokemon. Now I don't have time to explain them in depth, but they end up determining how strong our Pokemon are later on in the game. If the IVs or natures are bad, I have to reset and watch the whole cutscene again. Once I do find a good nature for these 2, I have to battle this guy that has 2 Zigzagoons. This is the tutorial fight, and the guy is very easy to beat, but unfortunately it's not guaranteed to do no damage. Umbreon can miss the KO if its special attack is too low. With this guy out of the way, we move on to the first roadblock of the run. Upon entering the next town, we see these 2 random thugs with a bag. After overhearing that the 2 guys actually had a girl inside the bag, they end up challenging us to a fight. And this guy isn't too hard, he has 2 Whismur, but the big thing is that Umbreon is unable to one-shot the Whismur, so we have to get lucky and hope the Whismur Umbreon does not kill uses Howl instead of Uproar. Luckily in this fight it does, and we can move on to saving the girl. After walking around the city for a little bit, we run into some of our old teammates from Team Snag'em. These guys explain why the criminal organization's after me. Turns out I stole a piece of equipment they really want back, and they end up challenging us to a fight. This fight is really easy, and we get through it pretty quickly, and I just want to mention that for the rest of the video, a lot of the fights are going to be cut out unless they're either Shadow Pokemon or they were tough. So with that, let's get on to the next fight against these two grunts. Now these two guys will show up a handful of times, and they have our first shadow Pokemon we have to capture. This shadow Pokemon is Makuhita. Now he has a pretty high capture rate, but it's also not guaranteed in any means. However, after we capture Makuhita, we can quickly dispatch of the rest of his Pokemon and move on. Our next fight is going to be with this mystery trainer Rosso. Now, there are 3 different guys we can fight on the way out of the town. Each one of them has a different shadow Pokemon, so we need to make sure we pick the perfect one for later in the run, because we only get one of the 3. Our choices are between Quilava, Croconaw, or Bayleaf. All of these are the Gen 2 starters and their second stage. The best choice for us is Quilava because he has a high speed stat and a high special attack. And on our first try, we end up capturing Quilava, which was pretty lucky, and we defeat Rosso. After the battle with him, we can leave the town and move on to the next town, which is Pyrite. Now, Pyrite Town is a little slum, and they don't really have much going for them other than this giant Colosseum in the back of their city. However, they do have a lot of shadow Pokemon here which we need to capture to move on. After doing all the required story stuff, we're gonna go ahead and try to capture all these Pokemon that are in the town square. The first on the list is Noctowl. However, I end up having a lot of trouble with this one, and after about 20 resets, we decide to come back and capture Noctowl later. We'll move on to Misdreavus, who requires just a few resets to capture. After Misdreavus is Fluffy, who we catch first try. And then we have an important Pokemon right after Fluffy. This is Skiploom. Skiploom is typically a very terrible Pokemon to use in any normal run. However, in a Damageless run, you want Pokemon that are fast, and you want Pokemon that can stop other Pokemon. Skiploom and its evolution Jumpluff have very high speed stats, they're immune to ground type attacks, and they learn Sleep Powder, which puts one Pokemon on the field to sleep with 75% accuracy. Now, after Skiploom, we'll move on to Slugma, who gets caught after just a few more resets. After Slugma, we catch Quagsire, who unfortunately does not get used throughout the run, despite my love for the Pokemon. And the last Pokemon, which we left for the end, was Noctowl. We end up getting him after just a couple more resets. Now after catching all the shadow Pokemon in the square, we have to move on to this Rogue Kale. Now he has a Shadow Furret and a couple Pokemon that are a little bit tough, but after a few resets, we defeat him and he gives us information about the Colosseum in the town. Apparently the Colosseum is being used to smuggle shadow Pokemon into the town, so we have to go there and participate in some battles to really figure out what's going on. In these battles at the Colosseum, you go through 4 consecutive fights, and if I take damage on any of them, I have to reset back to the first fight. There's no saving in between. After a few tries, I realized I need a lot more levels, so I go and level up against this one trainer. She provides a lot of experience due to her Dustox being a fully evolved Pokemon, and we will fight her a lot more in the future to get levels later. After getting a couple more levels from fighting all these trainers, Umbreon will learn Confuse Ray. This move is 100% accurate and confuses one opposing Pokemon. Now that we've leveled up, this first fight is very consistent. We can easily take down this first guy with just a few attacks and move on to the second fight. We are super effective against both of the Pokemon in the second fight, so there's nothing to worry about. However, the third fight has some major problems. The first Pokemon on the field is Electrike, which has Quick Attack. Quick Attack is a priority move, which means it always goes first. This causes a ton of problems in a Damageless run because even though Quick Attack doesn't kill us, it deals at least 1 damage. However, if we get lucky, Electrike will not go for Quick Attack and will decide to use a different move. So we can take him out and move on to Vulpix. Vulpix also knows Quick Attack, however after multiple tries I realized that Vulpix always uses Quick Attack against Umbreon, so I can switch in Misdreavus, who's a Ghost type and is immune to Quick Attack. The final battle is relatively simple, no crazy Quick Attack Pokemon, but we are not able to one-shot the Pokemon in this battle. We have to Confuse Ray the Goldeen and kill the Bagon on the first turn. Then Magnemite comes in, who we have to double into with Bite and Psybeam, hoping the Goldeen will hit itself in Confusion again. Luckily it does, and the last Pokemon comes in, Delibird. Delibird goes down to 1 Psybeam, and after hitting itself twice in Confusion, Goldeen goes down to Umbreon's bite. With that, we have completed the first Colosseum. Now, after winning the Colosseum, we have to fight this grunt who has a Shadow Yanma. It will take many resets, but eventually we do catch this Shadow Yanma despite its low capture rate. Now, after catching Yanma, we must make our way up to the top of this building. None of the trainers here pose much of a threat since we are a few levels higher than them from the Colosseum, but once we reach the top of the building, we have a big problem. There are two trainers at the top of the building waiting for us, and they unfortunately both have shadow Pokemon I need to catch. The first trainer has a Remoraid, and the second trainer has a Mantine. Now, as you've seen, catching shadow Pokemon is not that easy. If you've been watching the reset counter, typically I add about 5 resets between most of the catches, and the save points are really far away from the fight to top it all off. These shadow Pokemon have to be caught back to back without saving. And yet, despite all the odds against us, we end up catching both of them in a row after just 5 attempts. Now, this is mostly due to Skiploom being very good, which I mentioned earlier. Sleep Powder is truly magical in this sort of challenge. After catching both Pokemon, we're going to save and then come back to fight this guy outside of the building. He has a Shadow Quillfish and we are able to catch it after some quick attempts. We make our way into the cave and we fight this trainer that has a Shadow Meditite. After the Shadow Meditite, we'll move on to this trainer who has a Shadow Dunsparce, who we send to the PC. After Dunsparce, we have a Shadow Swablu, who is our last Shadow Pokemon before our first admin fight. Now, we have the first really difficult fight of the run. There are 4 Cypher admins in Pokemon Colosseum who each use a certain strategy or gimmick that's related to double battles, and they each have a Shadow Pokemon who is tough to catch at the end of their fights. This is Mirror B. He's easily the coolest guy out of every character in this game, and he has one of the best theme songs in all of gaming in my opinion. But don't let this fool you, he can still step all over you with his dancing shoes. Mirror B's main strategy in this fight is to set up rain so that his 4 Ludicolo can use their abilities. 2 of the Ludicolo have the ability Swift Swim, which doubles their speed if it's raining. This makes those Ludicolo faster than both my Pokemon on the field. The other 2 Ludicolo have the ability Rain Dish, which heals them at the end of their turn as long as rain is active. Now, after 2 unsuccessful attempts at this fight, I decided to go back and get a few more levels on Espeon and Umbreon, because neither one of them was even close to one-shotting a Ludicolo, and I would have needed some crazy RNG with Confuse Ray to win. But after getting those levels, I got this fight started. Both of his Ludicolo will spam Rain Dance on this first turn. This is not a terrible strategy on his part, but it is good for us because we can use this to safely attack both of his Pokemon this turn because he always goes for double Rain Dance. I use Confuse Ray on one of the Ludicolo and Psybeam the other. One of them ends up getting Rain Dance off, and now that it's set up we have to be a little careful, but I go for Bite and Swift to damage both of his Pokemon. Swift takes out one of the Ludicolo and Bite damages the other. The third Ludicolo comes out and I can hit it with Confuse Ray because it switched in mid-turn, just like we talked about at the beginning of the video. Now I can Psybeam again to get both of his Pokemon low. One of his Pokemon flinches, while the other misses a 95% accurate attack, thank goodness. This turn I can take out both the Ludicolos with Psybeam and Bite, and his final 2 Pokemon into the field. This is his weakest Ludicolo, and his Shadow Sudowoodo. Now, despite the fact that Sudowoodo is slower than maple syrup on a sundae, its capture rate is pretty abysmal, which makes this difficult. I Confuse Ray Sudowoodo after taking out the weak Ludicolo and send in Skiploom just in case. Now, my first Great Ball doesn't work, but after the Great Ball fails, Sudowoodo hits himself in confusion and I get another chance. I use this chance to throw another Great Ball while using Sleep Powder with Skiploom, and finally, after 4 hours of suffering through this fight, my Great Ball catches Sudowoodo and we can move on. After beating Mirror B, we get a tip to go to Agate Village. This is a quiet town where giant trees and waterfalls are pretty abundant, and we find some Cypher grunts there causing trouble at a shrine, so we have to beat up a few grunts and make our way to the shrine itself. Upon reaching the shrine, we see a trainer known as Egun trying to defeat this Cypher Peon, and let's just say that his Pikachu isn't quite Ash's Pikachu. But now it's our turn to fight, and this Cypher Peon has a Shadow Hitmontop, but other than the Hitmontop, none of his Pokemon are really a problem, so we sweep him easily. After beating him, we get to come back to the shrine, and this is where we can purify our Shadow Pokemon. Once purified, they will learn new moves, and it gives them all the experience they would have gotten from battling Pokemon, even through their Shadow form. It will also make it so they can level up normally from now on. We will go ahead and purify Mischievous, Skiploom, and Quilava. This will cause Skiploom to get enough experience to evolve into Jumpluff, and after purifying our Pokemon, we're going to make a quick stop at Phoenix City to battle pre-Gym Leader Justy. Now this is not a required part of the story, but we get a TM here called Return if we beat her. Return is pretty powerful. It's a normal type move whose damage increases the higher your friendship with that Pokemon. Now Gym Leader Justy isn't too hard at this point because we're a little over leveled, but it does take me a couple tries because she likes to spam double team. After getting the TM, we will move on to the next story part of the game, which is at Mount Battle. This location has a series of battles going all the way up the mountain, but for this part of the story, it's just 10 battles that we have to beat, and luckily, they do not have to be beaten consecutively. We get to save in between all of them if we choose. The first 9 battles here are pretty easy with just a few resets, but this final battle is against another Cypher admin. This is Admin Dakim, and he has a painfully annoying strategy for his battle. Spam Earthquake. Earthquake is one of the strongest moves in Pokemon Double Battles because it hits all Pokemon on the field with 100 base power, 100 accurate move. Dakim takes full advantage of this, and he will spam Earthquake with every Pokemon he has. Typically, in his battle, one of his Pokemon will go for Protect, while the other uses Earthquake, and then the next turn they will swap, so the one who protected will use Earthquake and vice versa. Similar to Mirror B, this is not a bad strategy, but after a few attempts it gets really predictable and repetitive, which makes the fight itself simple. In between this first and second attempt on Dakim, I go and level up to evolve Quilava into Typhlosion and get a few more levels on him. Espeon will also learn Psychic after it got a few levels, and we add Mantine to the team, who we caught earlier, because it's immune to water and ground type moves, as well as its ability to take out Camerupt and Golem easily. Now, I skipped quite a few resets here, but on my 78th attempt, Dakim leads Metang and Golem. After many attempts, I learned that this Golem will go for Protect and the Metang will use Earthquake. Knowing this, I Flame Wheel the Metang to take it out. His next Pokemon is Marshtomp, who will go for Protect while Golem Earthquakes, so I switch in Mantine and Psychic the Golem to take it out. After Golem is defeated, Camerupt, who is 4 times weak to Mantine's Bubble Beam, comes in. And I actually get really lucky here because Marshtomp did not use Protect, it went for an attacking move, but luckily Mantine is immune to its Mud Shot. Next turn, Psychic will take out the Marshtomp and Bubble Beam will take out the Camerupt, leaving only Dakim's Shadow Pokemon, Entei. Yeah, that's right, his last and Shadow Pokemon is Entei, a freaking legendary. To make things even worse, I have to catch it at full or slightly less than full health with a Great Ball. At full health, with a Great Ball, it's only a 0.41% chance to catch. And yet, I catch it at full health with a Great Ball on the 78th attempt. Although, to be fair, it did still take me over 10 hours of resets to get this, so I think this pop-off is pretty deserving. So after we beat Admin Dakim, we are presented with a very special item called the Time Flute. The Time Flute can be used to instantly purify any Shadow Pokemon, and it's a pretty good idea to use it on Entei here because legendaries take a very long time to purify normally. After grabbing an elevator key from a Cypher Grunt, we can head down to the underground, which is actually just an underground city built below Pyrite Town. And down here we will find quite a few new Shadow Pokemon we need to catch, including this Shadow Ledian. After snooping around the underground for a while, we will run into this eccentric newscaster who it turns out is actually also a Cypher admin. Seriously, there was only about 2 hours of gameplay between Dakim and this admin named Venus. Anyway, Venus is not too hard of a fight. The Pokemon she uses don't have much synergy, and she does not employ a particular strategy. However, for once since Pyrite Colosseum, I am actually a bit underleveled, so we will go visit our favorite trainer in Pyrite Town for some experience. Once we come back to fight Venus again, she is little more than a grunt, except for catching her shadow Pokemon Suicune. I think I'm starting to see a pattern here with the shadow Pokemon. Suicune is the same level as the Shadow Entei and has the same capture rate, but we still don't have Ultra Balls, so I have to reset over and over again until I finally catch Suicune with that less than 1% chance. Honestly, this fight with Venus is a disappointment because it could have been one of the harder fights if she spammed Surf or status conditions, but alas, I won't complain about an easy battle. However, after this fight, we're not quite done with the underground city yet. We need to chase Venus down as she runs away so we can get an item from her. On the way to catch her, we will be met with an endless flurry of grunts with shadow Pokemon we need to catch. We'll start off with this Gligar, whom's followed up with a Stantler. After that, we have a Piloswine, who I caught in a Timer Ball because I ran out of Great Balls. And finally, this Sneasel, who is actually really difficult to catch, mostly because of how fast it is. We will find Venus and get the item we needed, which also gives us access to another Time Flute which just coincidentally we can use on Suicune. The item we actually get from Venus though is a clue towards the next Cypher admin's whereabouts. Turns out he was running a lab out in a desert where he was creating shadow Pokemon, and this will be our next destination. This lab is absolutely riddled with trainers and shadow Pokemon, so let's get them out of the way. Our first shadow Pokemon will be Aipom, then Murkrow, Fortress soon after. We'll go ahead and add Ariados to the collection and Granbull. Next we can add a shadow Vibrava, take down this stupid Kecleon who absolutely destroyed me, and then watch this Wobbuffet live on 1 HP and Mirror Coat my Entei. Oh boy. However, we do get the run back and defeat it the second time. After all those battles, it's time to face the final admin, Admin Ian. This fight took me the longest of any battle in this run. Nearly 20 hours of gameplay between leveling up and resetting this fight over and over again. Similar to Venus, Ian does not use a specific strategy in his battles, but he does like to set up a rain dance for a few of his Pokemon to benefit from. In this battle, Ian will lead Huntail and Lantern. I go for Psychic on Lantern and Aurora Beam on Lantern as well, while the Huntail goes for Rain Dance. Once Psychic takes out the Lantern, Aurora Beam will actually hit Altaria, which takes it out in one hit. Huntail goes after Altaria faints and gets his Rain Dance off finally. Now we just have Golbat and Huntail left on the field, so Espeon goes for Psychic against Huntail and Suicune goes for Surf against Golbat. Surf is a good option here because it will deal extra damage in the rain, and it will deal some chip damage to the Raikou to weaken it. Raikou is the shadow Pokemon Ian uses, and it's a doozy to catch. Luckily we get Raikou down to half health and I can throw an Ultra Ball at it. Even at half health, the chance to catch Raikou is still only a 1.6% chance, but after 25 resets, we finally catch Raikou and defeat Cypher admin Ian. Wait, what? The Golbat lived after I caught Raikou? Oh. Unfortunately, that means I do have to reset. But don't worry, I'll skip through the battle and just show you the time that I actually catch and beat Ian. Believe it or not, we're now on the final area in the game, Realgam Tower. This tower is technically a Colosseum, and it holds a string of difficult fights that we have to beat without saving between them. But before we even get to those fights, we have some other fights we have to take care of first. This place has a handful of Cypher Grunts we have to battle, one of which has this Shadow Sunflora we need to catch. Once we get it, the next grunt has a Shadow Delibird we want to capture, and we'll sweep the rest of his team easily. After taking down those grunts, we have to fight all 4 Cypher admin again. Ugh, they just can't accept defeat, can they? These fights honestly aren't too bad, so we will run through them quickly, starting with Venus. She leads Blossom and Raichu, which Psychic and Flamethrower take out easily. Wigglytuff and Mischievous come out, who get destroyed by Psychic and Fire Blast, and finally Melodic gets switched in. A quick Psychic and Stomp will take it down. Next is Cypher Ian. The second time around, this fight is much easier. He leads Rhydon and Crobat, who we can take out with a Psychic on Crobat and Protect on Entei. Manectric enters the battlefield, so we Psychic the Manectric slot and switch into Suicune. Somehow Suicune dodges Toxic, which is really lucky, and Pelipper comes onto the field. We'll use Psychic on the Pelipper and Surf on the Rhydon to take them out. His final Pokemon Starmie will enter the field and take some chip damage from the Surf. That way, Psychic plus another Surf can take it out on the next turn and we win. The next admin is Kim, and his team actually changed a fair bit since our first encounter. He leads with Fortress and Claydol. However, his strategy has not changed at all. Psychic and Flamethrower can take out the Claydol going for Earthquake, and he sends in Wishcash. Psychic on Wishcash would take it out, but it protects, and luckily our Flamethrower takes out the Fortress who is going for Earthquake. Flygon is sent out, and it is actually immune to Earthquake due to its ability, so it won't protect. However, a Psychic on the Wishcash can feign it, and Houndoom enters the battlefield. Flamethrower deals half health to Flygon as it uses Sunny Day, which actually benefits us more than him. We then Psychic the Flygon and Flamethrower the Houndoom to win the battle. Y'all know I had to leave the best guy for last. Mirror B is the last admin we need to defeat, and his team hasn't changed too much. He does lead Golduck and Loudred, who are new, however they are honestly pushovers, and Psychic plus Flamethrower proves to be a deadly combo. But then his pride and joy double Ludicolo into the field. They are a much higher level than before, but unfortunately, they still don't pose any threat. One of his Ludicolo does get a Rain Dance off, but it doesn't matter at all in the end. Psychic plus Flamethrower for the win once again. Also, quick note, I am pretty over-leveled compared to these Cypher admin fights, but I'm actually under-leveled at this point compared to the final boss, so don't worry about me sweeping through these guys. It's not really on purpose, I was just prepared for the final battle. Let's move on to Grunt Dog, who has the Shadow Heracross we need to capture. I ended up running out of Ultra Balls and having to use a Timer Ball on this Heracross, but it all worked out and we caught him eventually. Next, there's this trainer who has these Pokemon who almost all know Fake Out. Fake Out is a priority move, which as we learned is a big problem, but eventually I learned his pattern and can alternate Protect to defeat him. Before the next fight, we're going to go pick up the Master Ball from Egan. Typically in Pokemon games you only get one Master Ball, which is a guaranteed capture on any one Pokemon. And technically the same rules apply to this game, however there is one chink in that plot armor. The ability to duplicate a single Pokeball in Pokemon Colosseum. Pokemon games are honestly pretty well known for being extremely well made. Typically any glitches that are included in the games are minor or incredibly hard to set up. However, Colosseum includes a duplication glitch that makes this run possible. This glitch is incredibly easy to use and is very simple to set up. To do so, the first Pokemon has to use a Snag Ball, and the second Pokemon needs to go into the item bag and move that ball to a different slot using the Y button. This will cause the ball to be thrown, but whenever you check the bag again, the ball you used will still be there. Now, I personally didn't even know this glitch existed before starting this run, and I was scrolling through Bulbapedia's page on Pokemon Colosseum when I found this glitch. I fully believe that the bonus challenge of this run to catch every Shadow Pokemon would be nearly impossible without this glitch. Many of the Shadow Pokemon we need to catch next have less than a 5% capture rate with full health, and there are 5 of them in a row. Just imagine the odds of that. Anyway, just know that I will be using this glitch to capture the next couple Shadow Pokemon, so let's move on. The next fight is against Gonzap. Now this guy has only been mentioned once in the intro to this video, and not even by name, but he is the leader of Team Snag'em, who we, the main character, used to work for. His team of Pokemon are not too much to worry about, except for the fact that quite a few of them are immune to Espeon's Psychic. If you've been paying attention, you'll know that Psychic has been carrying this whole run on its back. Gonzap leads Hariyama and Crawdaunt for this fight, so we will use Psychic and Fire Blast the Crawdaunt. Psychic takes down the Hariyama, and luckily Fire Blast crits the Crawdaunt to take it out. This is huge because Crawdaunt was the main problem in this fight actually, it caused many resets. Pinsir and Shiftry will come out next, and these two go down to a Psychic and Flamethrower combo, leaving just his last Pokemon, Skarmory. Luckily, we now have a Master Ball and the duplication glitch to take advantage of, allowing us to capture Skarmory easily. After beating Gonzap, we will quickly go and purify Raikou as its heart gauge went down enough naturally through battling. This is important as we need Rain Dance on Raikou to win a fight later. or so I thought at the time. Just don't worry about it, we don't end up using Raikou. Now, this fight on the screen was a reset, and I'm censoring some stuff as not to ruin the story, but this is an example of why switching Pokemon mid-battle makes this very hard. Tyranitar comes in mid-turn and its ability activates, which sets Sandstorm. And if we don't get rid of the Sandstorm, then we will have to deal with the chip damage at the end of the turn. This means I need Tyranitar to switch in and then use Rain Dance or Sunny Day after Tyranitar switches in to get rid of the Sandstorm. And this leaves my Pokemon wide open to attacks. You can see how this would be a problem. Now let's move on to the last battles of this game, and just remember that all of these are consecutive, so if I lose on the final boss, I have to do all of these again. All of these clips are from the run where I won the final battle, so I've done most of these fights over 20 times. That's why I look a little bored. First up is Bodybuilder Joe Moss, who leads Porygon 2 and Miltank. Miltank is a shadow Pokemon we need to catch with the Master Ball glitch. Porygon 2 goes down to a simple flamethrower, Joe Moss will then send in Zangoose, who goes down to Psychic, and the first fight is complete. The second fight is against Ryder Dellin, who leads a Shadow Absol we need to catch, and a Sharpedo. Master Ball glitch again to capture the Absol, and one flamethrower takes out the Sharpedo. Mighty Yenna follows up and takes one return and one flamethrower to faint. The third fight is against Cypher Pionella. She was one of the hardest fights to figure out completely, but I eventually learned that her Shadow Houndoom will spam Howl 3 times before attacking. This means that I can actually leave it alone until I defeat her other Pokemon, and then I can capture Houndoom. So I Psychic the Torkoal, Flamethrower the Macargo that comes onto the field, and now I can defeat the Macargo with Psychic and use Sunny Day on Entei just to waste a turn. Then, the next turn, I can catch the Houndoom with the Master Ball glitch and call it good. Last fight before the final boss is Cypher Stone. He is actually a little bit tough due to his Credilli being able to almost tank a Psychic from Espeon. We start by capturing Tropius and protecting Entei from Ancient Power. Vileplume comes in next and we hit them with Psychic and Flamethrower to take out Credilli and Vileplume. The last Pokemon is Cacturne, who easily goes down to a return Flamethrower combo. Our final battle is against Cypher Nascor. He has a full team of 6 insanely strong Pokemon, starting off with Xatu and Dusclops. These two are tough, but Psychic and Flamethrower put in work and take them out. Blaziken and Gardevoir are next. We have the type advantage on Blaziken, and Gardevoir is weak enough to faint from a Fire Blast. Unfortunately, Fire Blast misses and leaves Gardevoir alive, but the Blaziken does go down. Next turn, we'll go for Psychic on Walrein to destroy it, and Fire Blast again. Luckily, it hits its mark this time and Gardevoir goes down. That only leaves the Shadow Metagross. All we have to do is Master Ball the Metagross and it's all over. Finally, after almost 80 hours of footage, we have beat Pokemon Colosseum. Except we actually haven't. If you watched my face cam there's not even a hint of excitement, because there is one more final boss in the game who's even tougher. Escade, the mayor of Phoenix City. Except he isn't really actually the mayor of Phoenix City. He's the evil boss of Cypher. Alright, now it's time for the final battle against Cypher Head Evis. Let's do this. He leads with Machamp and Slowking. I use Psychic on Machamp and protect Entei this turn just in case. Although this is not my first time reaching Evis, I don't have enough experience against him to know what moves he's going to use all the time, so it's still a guessing game. That's why you'll see me go for double protect a couple times during this run just to see what moves he's going to use. This turn he ends up using an X attack while my Espeon takes out his Machamp. This means we both wasted a turn where we could have been attacking since my Entei protected. But next is his Slaking, and this is where his strategy comes into play. Let's pause real quick and have a Pokemon lesson. Slaking actually has the highest base stats of any non-legendary Pokemon, but its ability allows it to only move every other turn, which is a huge hindrance in Pokemon. But if you have a Pokemon that knows Skill Swap, you can get rid of Slaking's poor ability and give it a new good ability. This is exactly what Evis is going for with Slowking. Knowing that he's going to do that, I can actually leave his Slowking alive with that ability that only allows him to attack every other turn and defeat his Slaking. Now that I've explained that, I'm going to go for Psychic against the Slaking and Flamethrower the Slowking just to deal chip damage. The Slaking goes down, and now he has a useless Slowking left on his field. Next turn, I go for double protect to see what moves he's gonna use, but unfortunately the Scizor goes for Swords Dance, which doubles its attack stat, and Slowking tries to hit Espeon. I'll use Espeon's new move Shadow Ball to deal good damage to Slowking, and Flamethrower the Scizor to defeat it. Now Evis only has 3 Pokemon left. He sends in Salamence, so I will double protect again to prevent any damage and just see what moves he goes for. I'm gonna go ahead and Psychic the Salamence to defeat it, and then Sunny Day on Entei to prevent Tyranitar's Sandstream ability from dealing me damage. Unfortunately, Evis fully heals Slowking this turn, but my plan still works perfectly and I stop Shadow Tyranitar's Sandstream from dealing me any damage. All that's left on the field is a Slowking and a Shadow Tyranitar. I know that Slowking is going to try and hit Espeon with Shadow Ball because that's the only move it's gone for all game, so I go ahead and protect Espeon and use the Master Ball on Tyranitar. However, since I used Entei's turn to Master Ball Tyranitar, that means I cannot perform the Master Ball glitch to duplicate it. No more Master Balls for me. I go for Shadow Ball and Flamethrower on the Slowking, but it only deals about 3/4 damage. Luckily, because of that poor ability, Slowking is loafing around this turn, and I'm able to hit it next turn with one more Shadow Ball and finish it off. And with that, we have officially completed Colosseum's main story. Now, Colosseum does include an epilogue with more Pokemon to capture and a 100 battle consecutive challenge that I am totally willing to do if I get some good feedback on this video. I know this is asking a lot for my channel, but if I can get at least 500 views and 10 likes on this video, I will do a part 2 where I go back and do the whole epilogue, capturing every Pokemon and finishing the 100 battle challenge. So make sure you subscribe if we get to that point so you'll know when that video is released. Now, this challenge was truly a daunting task for me. As far as I know, since I couldn't find any other videos covering this topic, I am the first person to ever finish a Damageless Colosseum run, much less capture every single Shadow Pokemon and do it Damageless. That's kind of crazy, honestly, but I did take over 100 hours of footage to get to that point, and sorting through all of that and editing this challenge took me over 3 months. But I'm truly happy it's all done. If you watched all the way through, I just want to say thank you, and maybe you'll like some of my other content. I did make a Damageless Heart Gold run, although it is definitely not up to the same standard as this video, but maybe you could check that one out too. If you want to see more of these videos, or if you have any cool challenge ideas, you can leave them down below. I honestly love doing this one, and I'm definitely down to play some other games Damageless. With that, everybody, I've been Conversion CP. I hope you enjoyed the video. Peace. It's time for some funky music for the outro.